India is a sovereign country, meaning it has the power to make its own laws and decisions without the interference of any external forces. Now, can the developed world powers threaten the sovereignty of India? Maybe not directly, but indirectly, yes, they can. Are BBC and Hindenburg the first instances of discussion regarding breach of sovereignty, or has there been more instances in the past with other countries as well? Let's have a detailed discussion on this pressing issue on today's episode of The East Opinion. Hello all, I am Shreya Tiwari from The East Opinion, and today's discussion is all about a very serious question, that how the foreign media houses and institutes have been a serious challenge for the security of developing and underdeveloped nations. For a long time, the West has held the belief that their system of governance, democratic principles, economic policies, and human right values have been the epitome of perfection. And anyone who does not align with these so-called embodiment of lawlessness is expected to adopt the Western values in order to rescue their society. Now, the West may not impose their ideologies and principles directly, but there are numerous indirect ways to breach and threaten the sovereignty and integrity of any nation. One of the most powerful ways is to interfere with the mindsets of people. Now, if power is successful in swaying away the thoughts of a democratic society, then the integrity of whole nation gets threatened. In the past, many Western media houses and institutes have attempted to infringe upon the sovereignty and integrity of underdeveloped and developing nations for their own benefits and stakes. During the Iraq War in 2003, the Western media outlets were accused of providing a biased coverage that supported the intervention of Western nations in Iraq. The media portrayed the Iraqi government as a threat to the Western nations and emphasized on the intervention in order to protect the West's national security interest. The Western media has also been accused of threatening the sovereignty of Venezuela by providing biased media coverage of the whole political situation in the nation. The media often portrayed the Venezuelan government as a threat to democracy and human rights and has supported the opposition to the government in its efforts to overthrow the current government in Venezuela. Now a simple question arises. Who has given the authority to the West to decide which country's governance is good or bad for the people and democracy? Why the West always assumes that if a country is not good as per their liking, if the governance is not good as per their likings, then either they should adopt Western ideologies or be overthrown. Has the West really been so perfect and flawless with their model of governance all the time? We all have seen the West response towards the Russian-Ukraine conflict, whose one of the major reasons was Russia sensing a national security threat because of the Ukraine's intentions of joining NATO. But how dare we forget, in the whole world, the national security interests of only the West matters. Well, don't you remember in 1962, just because the Cuban government became a communist state and their ties with Soviet Union became closer, USA imposed an economic embargo and then tried to overthrow the Cuban government. Now look at the irony here. If a nation restricts some propaganda in order to protect its sovereignty and integrity, then they are curbing the democratic values and breaching the right to freedom of expression. But when a Western nation invaded Iraq 11,000 kilometers away just because their officials were convinced that Iraq would soon have nuclear weapons, then this intervention, merely based on suspicion, is justified on the name of national security threat. After remembering these events, It's somewhat clear that the main intention behind most of the Western propaganda is maintaining the Western hegemony around the world. And now we know that these Western media outlets and foreign institutes have a great potential to threaten a nation's sovereignty by any means. So is it really correct to blindly get charmed by any foreign propaganda? Are the liberal ideas getting this really right by second-guessing the country's own judicial investigative agencies and blindly trusting the foreign sources? Well, it's not about a particular political party or an ideology, because a foreign power, a foreign media house or an institute meddling with the sovereignty of a country has happened before, during the times of other governments as well. And let's not forget about the famous Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, FCRA, passed by the previous government led by Srimati Indira Gandhi in 1976 after the emergency. The main intention behind this act was to prevent the foreign organizations' influence on the social, political, economic and religious discussions of the country and to protect the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. The BBC documentary based on the Gujarat riots and the Hindenburg Report was recently trending across the Indian subcontinent. The timings of these West-fabricated manipulative content based on the researchers as per the high standards of Western principles, the paragons of excellence, was mind-blowing. Maybe it's a coincidence, but it's real good. One day, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Pakistan calls the Prime Minister of India as the butcher of Gujarat riots. Then, just 1 month after this, the BBC documentary on the Gujarat riots goes viral. We all know that the Lok Sabha elections of India is nearing, and this is not a bad timing to try destabilize the economy and governance of a country who is standing tall globally with her fearless views on globally pressing issues such as Russia, Ukraine, China and Afghanistan. The West is obviously not in a place here to harm the sovereignty of India with their boring series of sanctions, especially not after the historic Boeing and Air India deal. So here comes the indirect way. Agitate with the mindsets of people against their own governance, destabilize the economy. Obviously not a bad stance just before the elections. Well, these might be just some possibilities or there might be some truth in it. But the important thing to ponder upon here is, with the right to freedom of expression comes the duty to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. We as citizens are definitely free to express ourselves, but as Indians, we need to understand that a foreign influence has never been good for the country, and it is evident from the 200 years of history. So when it comes to the nation, we need to expand the boundaries of our decision making beyond a political party or an ideology. Remember, the sovereignty and integrity of the nation comes first. Well, that's all in today's episode of The East Opinion. If you like our content, do like, subscribe and share. We will come with another amazing topic. Until then, do share your opinions, as every opinion matters.